Hello, I'm Doug, and this is the Taste and Sensibility channel. And today we are at Fresh Cheese number 1, where we are looking at Mascarpone, an Italian type cream cheese, or roughly equivalent. So I got into cheeses because I went to a whiskey and cheese tasting with 5 whiskeys chosen by the liquor store's spirits guy, and then 5 cheeses chosen by a local cheese expert who's also a national cheese expert. This woman is Liz Thorpe. And I won't go into the book here because I have all these bowls and things out. But I'll be going through and explaining her system of organizing cheese and why that's a good way to look at it. I always thought cheese and wine were just hard to wade into and learn about because there were so many systems, there's so many parts. And she has a great way of explaining things and organizing cheese characteristics. So today we're starting in on fresh cheeses, which means a soft, high moisture, unaged, rindless cheese that is mostly going to taste like milk or cream. They can be salted or not salted, but other than salt, they're not going to have very intense flavors. They're also going to be ingredient cheeses. They're part of something. They usually go into a recipe. You make queso for chips, or you put ricotta into Italian cooking and lasagna. So today we're starting in with a soft, fresh cheese called mascarpone, which has its origin in Italy, and all these are domestically made here in the US. And what we have are Rio Brioni, and then Whole Foods brand mascarpone, and then a Vermont Creamery and their brand of mascarpone. And I'm going to taste them plain, and then I have a little bit of honey in this one, a little bit of honey on one corner of this one to see how those get along, and then I have a pear and a mango stuck into this fluffy, nice mascarpone sample. I'm going to go through and taste all those things and see how they get along together. So if you like the videos that you're seeing on this channel, be it cheese or licorice or whiskey or varietal honeys, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below. Leave some questions. Let's interact a little bit. If you click on that bell, you will get notified when the new videos pop up on Mondays and Thursdays. I'm going to start in with this Rio Brioni, which is a brand I haven't seen much before, but it showed up in a store I was looking at. So I thought I would buy it to get a third. And this is the stiffest or densest or most solid of the mascarpones. This one over here is almost like a whipped cream. You spoon it out a little bit and you're expecting it to be whipped cream. You bring it up to your mouth and it does not taste sweet. They haven't added sugar. And this one's kind of in between, but this one's very dense and has a gooey consistency. And it can't be gums or artificial thickeners or things like that because the ingredients are pasteurized cow's cream, pasteurized cow's milk, and citric acid. So it's a fairly natural product. After they curdle it using whatever rennet or acid or citric acid might be the curdling agent. And then they pull out the fat and protein that makes all the lumps and press out the moisture. So this one has a very wet and dense texture. It really tastes like milk. You think it's going to be buttery, but it doesn't go quite as far as butter, and it doesn't have any salt in it, so all the sweetness comes from the milk, dairy, lactic milk. It's very fresh tasting. So it's not something you sit around and eat by itself, but it would go good with fruit or sweets or other things like that. So that's why there's a bit of honey in here. So this is very nice. You can tell it's high quality. It'd be interesting in certain dishes. You can pick up all those things just from tasting it. So mascarpone is the cheese that's in tiramisu, the Italian dessert. And I found some tiramisu ice cream, so I'll be tasting that later in a little clip for cheeses and foods. So this is interesting. It's creamy, dairy for sure, not salty. Doesn't stand out on its own, and there's no reason to eat it by itself. But now I'm going to dip into the part with honey, and I use some avocado honey from Winter Park, which is a strong tasting honey. If you're tasting it by itself, makes you think something went wrong with the honey. But with other foods, I'm sure it dilutes it, cuts it down, and the stronger flavors are tamped down a bit. So with a little honey with the mascarpone, it's a whole different thing. There's a funky vegetal sweetness, a molasses-like sweetness to the avocado honey. So that would be a good pairing or a very light dessert after a meal to put together that honey and this mascarpone. So that was a nice combo of the sweetness and the funkiness of the avocado honey, along with the creamy, rich, fat mouthfeel of the mascarpone. So that's very nice cheese. Now we're moving on to Whole Foods farmstead cheese. Ingredients here say pasteurized cream, pasteurized milk, citric acid. Sounds like the same sort of deal. You probably curdle it with the citric acid. And I'm going to taste it here. I'd say there's a little bit less of the dairy taste. Dairy taste was very strong here. Strong cream. Starts making you think you're eating some butter, but the butter flavor doesn't really develop. So again, the unsalted cheese is very plain, and you just get dairy nuts. And this dairy is not quite as intense as the one over here. And now I'm going to go after some of the chestnut blossom honey that I put in here, which has a very strong flavor. And I don't usually like it. And here, it provides real interesting contrast. Dairy tastes, dairy notes are very familiar. And this chestnut blossom honey is adding another dimension that's hard to identify. But interesting, sweet, kind of some mystery notes, but they aren't overpowering or too strong to eat. So again, a high quality cheese. Main flavor is dairy. And it pairs well with an odd, funky honey. So that's very good. So I like that one. Next, we're looking at Vermont Creamery's mascarpone. So this is a little more of a craft place. They do lots of different cheeses. And this is just one of them, but they're a bit more expensive to get down here in Louisiana. This Whole Foods was $3.49 in my store, and the Vermont Creamery mascarpone was $6 for the same size tub. So I've got a couple of pieces of fruit stuck in here. I'm going to turn it around so I don't get that first. But this is a lighter, fluffy, almost whipped cream type of consistency. Very light, low density, definitely high moisture. Makes you think, is this whipped cream? Or some kind of mousse, vanilla, coconut? That's what you might be thinking, but it's just those dairy nuts. Definitely a fat, rich mouthfeel. Guess we should check those ingredients. Pasteurized cream, pasteurized cultured cream, skim milk, glucono-delta-lactone, contains milk. So again, dairy, fat mouthfeel, rich mouthfeel. You know you're eating something with calories in it. So very good. And the pairing I'm going to do here is a little piece of a pear. First, so it got some of the cream, some of the cheese. Wow, the fruitiness and tartness of the pear. Cut the fat of the cheese. It's really quite a nice combination. Go well together. The pear is a little sweet and a little tart and juicy. And it's just a contrast in terms of mouthfeel and the flavors. So that works out pretty well. Now my other piece of fruit here is a little more slippery and hard to handle. But it's a piece of mango, fresh mango that I just sliced. And it's very juicy and about to squirt out of my hands. And it's not quite as good of a complement for the mascarpone cheese as the pear was. So it goes well. There's a nice contrast, but there's not as much contrast. And now I'm going to edit out licking my fingers. And now the last little tasting I'm going to do is going to be putting the medium density cheese, I guess, onto some bread or crackers. So I want to get a little of the mascarpone on a piece of toast or completely dried out bread. I didn't toast it, it just came that way from the bakery section. Oop, fell back in. So it's not usually thought of as a spreadable cheese or a hors d'oeuvre type cheese. But it contrasts really well with the flavor and the texture of this crispy, crunchy toast. So that was good and I liked it. I'm just going to put it on a piece of bread. And I'm thinking most of what I liked was the texture contrast, so this may be less successful. Yeah, it's pretty bland. It cuts all the mouthfeel that you're used to from the cheese. And then the texture contrast is not nearly as great. But I've got a little bit of a fig and ginger preserves here, jam. So I will put that on the mascarpone and bread. And this is like a grocery store ciabatta. So that is good. The fig jam sort of takes over. And it's the loudest note, but it goes well with the cheese, it goes well with the bread. So that saved it, that fixed it. So I didn't specify, and I think everyone assumed that all these cheeses are made from the milk of cows. But we'll be getting into cheeses that are from sheep's milk, or water buffalo, or goat, along with cow milk. So be alert for those things coming up. Next time we're going to be doing mozzarella, which is Liz's gateway cheese. If you like mozzarella, you're most likely going to like ricotta. You're most likely going to like burrata. So it's set up like that. So this whole fresh cheese series is going to be about 20 or 25 different reviews of the fresh, rindless, creamy, high moisture cheeses in her mozzarella gateway. And we'll explain that a little more next time. As I said before, like, comment, ask questions, subscribe, click the bell, and that's all for now.